Okay, here we are. What's today? The 9th. The 9th of Adar. Hayom Yom. Oops, I just moved myself. Am I good? Okay. So, when someone walks the street and thinks words of Mishnah or Tanya, or sits in a store with a Chumash or Tillim, that is more valued today than it was when the streets were bright with the light of Torah. Interesting, right? You see, one of my sons once said that the only place he would really like to visit is Europe before the Holocaust, when the streets were alive with the activity and the light of Yidden, and Yidden from Yidden, and engaged and steeped in Torah and mitzvahs. But so that's when the streets were bright. But he says this is more value. This that we're today sitting in streets which are not bright with the light of Torah, but we sit with the Torah in us, and we bring that Torah from the darkness into the light. This has a value, which is it's always the same thing: the value of overcoming the darkness. We must not go about in the streets with a vacant heart. We must have some Torah memorized to take with us into the street. Well, we're about to learn a piece of Torah, and maybe we could memorize a short piece and take it with us into the street. Or if we don't memorize it, one of the blessings of the darkness of our age is we have enough technology that we can have it at our fingertips whenever we want to.
I remember Gedalia Schaefer?
Oh, sure, I remember Gedalia Schaefer, yeah.
Well, he would walk down the streets of Manhattan with his, I think it was his Sefer Tehillim, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was right in front of him. I don't know how he would not trip or walk, and walk into a post or something. But I would see him walking down the streets of Manhattan with his Sefer right in front of him.
Beautiful. There are people here who do this today when I walk to work. There's one guy I've been passing for years. And we have obviously something in common. He goes one way, we go another way. That's what we have in common. And he always has his nose. Rabbi Braun, for instance, the Rav here, who passes my house, always is walking the streets with something he's learning in front of him. Yeah. Yes.
Come to Eretz Yisroel. It's very common.
Lessons in Tanya.
Okay.
New chapter 32, Lamed Beis, 421. Lamed Beis is heart, and this chapter is often referred to as the heart of the Tanya. Okay, this edition, page Mem Aleph. Page Mem Aleph. Okay. Just set up here. Okay. Okay. We have been speaking a lot about, in strong terms, the blocking factor, the obscuring factor of the body. And when I say in strong terms, the loathsomeness of the body, the fact that the body has to be despised. And we've explained, hopefully, and hopefully I'm going to do it again just to make sure that it's settled, that all of this is from the perspective of the fact that the natural state of the body, the unrectified state of the body, is that the body, in fact, does conceal godliness. Like the body is made of very essential elemental molecules and atoms. So, for instance, let me put it sort of this way. We have a lot of nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, potassium. Do you hate those things? I have no hatred for potassium, right? But the notion of it being loathsome to me is that it bothers me that this potassium is concealing something, which is the godly force that brings it into existence and keeps it into existence in the first place. And that's just an element, potassium. Body is a conglomerate, a massive and beautifully orchestrated conglomerate of all this stuff. It bothers me that the natural state is that it conceals the godly state. And I'm bothered by that. And I want to do something about that. So what can I do about that? I can perform positive mitzvahs with the body, right? I can utilize the body for Kedusha. I can perform negative mitzvahs with the body, which is stay away from and move myself out of that state of darkness by not succumbing to the natural desires of the body per se, but where I'm permitted to utilize those natural desires for Kedusha, and when I'm not permitted to, then move away from it. Just eating is a good example of that. There's eating properly, and there's eating improperly. There's eating improperly in a way that damages oneself, and there's eating properly in a way that gives life to oneself. So the body can be looked at in two ways. In its natural state, something that I need to do something with, I need to rectify. And in its godly state, meaning like everything else, it comes from God himself, in its rectified state, it becomes a vehicle for taking me and opening up a window into Elokus. So with that, we'll now get into this chapter 32. Through the things that we've said above, that one's body should be nivza v'nimmas be'enov, despicable, disgusting in one's eyes, in the context that I've just mentioned. In a short way, the disgustingness of the body is that it conceals, but at the same time, it can be utilized as a chariot, as we've talked before. As the stallion takes the rider to a place that the rider could never get to on its own, when the body is used the way it's been designed to reveal holiness. But when it isn't, it has these negative connotations. So therefore, if the body is at the moment being negatively connotated, what's the positivity that we can bring to bear? The realization that underneath that body, and concealed by that body, and wanting to change and rectify that body is the energy of the Nefesh Elokis. And that should be our focus. That should be our joy should come from the joy of the Nefesh Lavado, from the godly soul alone. And this focus, in the way that I've been speaking, and I hope it's clear, and if not, you'll ask, this kind of focus he calls the derech yeshora. It's the straight way, the kala, and the easy way, to come to the mitzvah of loving your friend as yourself. And this is why this chapter is called Lev Lamed Beis, is called the heart of the Tanya, because the heart is that hearts should be bringing people together. Ahavas Yisroel. And when we look at Ahavas Yisroel, we don't look at the differentiation of the bodies. This one, maybe Leolenu, is lame, and this one is fat, and this one is beautiful, and this one is the opposite. Look deeper. That's the whole idea here. Look deeper than the natural state, which covers over godliness, and look deeper. And when you look deeper, as he's going to explain, you'll come to something which is very easy to come to if you look with these eyes, to the mitzvah of loving your neighbor as your friend as yourself, because you're looking at the soul, the whole Nefesh Yisroel, looking at the soul of every Jewish people, Lim Gadol Yad Kotan, and from a small person to a large person, whatever shape or size, they're all invested with the singularity of the Nefesh Elokis. Since you're not looking at the natural state of the body, which again he calls the disgustedness of the fact that the body conceals Elokus, you're not looking at that, but you're looking at what's underneath. And when you look underneath and you're looking at this soul and the spirit of someone, he asks the question, how can you make a judgment about which soul is a better soul? Which soul is a soul that one should admire more? You have no window into each and every one of our souls. And in fact, when you look at the source, well, let's go back. Who knows? Who can tell the variety of different souls and the levels? and where their souls come from. And furthermore, all of the souls are equal at root. All of our souls have one Father to all of us. And therefore, all the Jewish people are called brothers. From the perspective of the root of our souls. Hashem Echad, in the one God. It's the bodies which are presenting differences. Therefore, so if you make the body your focus versus the soul, if you make the body and bodily things the main deal, and you make the soul secondary, you won't ever come to true love and true brotherhood between and amongst all of us together. The love will always depend on something. You know, it can even be a midah. I mean, this is a very difficult thing, I think, in practice. All right, we can get over the fact that this one is not as good looking as somebody else, right? But if the behavior is also not very attractive, how can I love that person? Well, this is more difficult, but it's more what we call in the language of it is stripping the spiritual from its physical, stripping away the layers and layers that obfuscate and cover over the pintal yid, which is the same in everybody, and the godly soul. And this person, I mean, he doesn't say this, what I'm about to say here, but in other places, we have one Father for all of us, means that God himself intended that each of us should have and be what we are, with our particular constructs of midah, of seichel, midos, machshava, david, and ma'aseh. And that difference is part of God's plan. And if it's God's plan, and we say, Ein ra yored mishamayma, that no bad can possibly come from heaven, so everybody we know is a golden nugget, so to speak, in the hand of God. And that gives us a perspective to love each other, no matter what's being shown and exhibited on the more superficial levels. And this is what Hillel the elder said, Al Kiyam mitzvah zu, concerning this mitzvah, the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel, Zehu kol haTorah, Kulu. This is the entire Torah, because what is this? This is drilling down to the core. This is paring away the obstruction. This is removing the darkness which covers over the light. And that is the whole Torah. Torah or, right? Torah is called light. And that light, God intentionally puts it through tzimtzum, contraction. He intentionally hides it away. He hides it away for us to find it. A little cosmic game of hide and seek, so to speak. But he's hidden it for the sake that we should reveal it. And the way to reveal it, we have the opportunity, every Jew we see, every other person we see on the street, is to approach that person and that encounter that we're having with that person in a manner of piercing through what's going on in the surface to the heart of hearts. And that's the whole Torah. The Edek Perusha, what he said, he finishes Hillel HaZaken's expression that fulfilling the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisroel, he says, Zeh kol haTorah kulu, this is the entire Torah, the Edek Perusha, and the rest of it is just explanation of this. This, what's the this? To transform darkness into light, to see and bring forth godliness, to make a dwelling place for Hashem in the world that obscures him. That's the purpose of the whole Torah, and the rest is just an explanation of how to do it. Because the foundation and the root of the entire Torah is this, which I've been saying in other words, to raise up and elevate the soul, meaning the spiritual, the godly, over the physical. And in doing so, enlist the physical in its in the capacity for which it has been created, which is to be the vehicle for us to bring God down here below. So again, the whole purpose of the Torah is lahagbia ulahaloise hanefesh alaguf. That's an underline in my book, and literally in my book, to lift up and elevate the soul over the body. Maila, higher and higher and higher ad ikora, until you get back to the root, the shoresh, the ikar, the root and the source of everything, the kol olmim of all worlds. The gam, right? In other words, elevate your perspective, raise your perspective up about the physical, come to an elevated understanding of that. And with that elevated understanding of that, let the machshava, the thought and understanding of that, pierce your heart and elevate your heart. And with that, gam lachamshik, to draw down here below and reveal the Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the light of the Infinite One, may he be blessed, B'Knesset Yisroel, in the whole body of Jewish people. As we will speak about later. Nahainu b'makan neshamas, kol Yisroel, to draw down that pintal yid, which is the chelek elakah. In other words, the pintal yid and the chelek elakah, godliness and soulfulness go together here at root, and to make that godliness and that soulfulness exhibited throughout the reality of the physical world down here below. Draw it down, the light of the Infinite One, into the body of Jewish people. From grasping it, from bringing down the source from which it all comes. That there should be one involved in one with one. In other words, that the entire Jewish people, that's what he's speaking about here, because he's talking about Ahavas Yisroel, and the entire world, which is the meaning in, outside of the context of what we're learning today, but the world itself, right? He wants he wants a dwelling place in the lower world. Yes, in the heart and body and mind of all Jewish people together, but also in the whole planet. The whole planet is coming to a state of awareness of God, and that the knowledge of God, as the Rambam says, will cover the earth like the waters cover the seabed. That's the whole point. Get to bring down that source of everything down here below, that there should be a unity of above and below. And that there should be, on the contrary, no separation between this world and the source of it, no separation between Jew and Jew, between man and man, between fellow, between any. We should see the godliness, the unity, the echad, in each one in each particle of all the infinite particles of the diversity of creation. No separation whatsoever. And there should be no separation. If you're looking at souls, there is no separation. So we should be living with that consciousness, and there should be no separation among souls. And why shouldn't there? Here's a negative way of saying it. I mean, we've just spoken about the positive way of saying it. The negative way of saying it is to realize God says, the Zohar says, that that godliness cannot dwell in a blemished place. We need to clarify, rectify the home, sweep out, clean up the house, so to speak. We're all we have to make a holy place so the Shekinah can dwell within, and we have to clean up our act. We have to take whatever you conceive in your own mind as your own brokenness and bring it together. And we've talked about earlier, one of the key place for this is in davening, which we explained a few pages ago, that the tefillah is lashon tafil. The feel means to, it's brought in the Gemara that if a broken earthenware earthenware vessel becomes broken and it's a clay, you can take clay and bring it back together again. You can take brokenness and make harmony and unity and beauty out of it again. Because Hashem can't dwell in the brokenness. He needs to dwell in what's called an asa shlim, a whole place. So he doesn't dwell in a blemished place. And we say this in Shemon Esrei, in the last bracha, bless us. Baruch is lashon, bring down the awareness, help us so that we can help us cultivate this awareness, our Father, that we are all echad, kulon echad, we are all one, be'or panechad, in the light of your face, and as is written in another place at length. And that's today's Tanya. The opportunity, this place, I'll say it because I know as soon as I walk out that door, whether it's my neighbor or whether it's somebody at work, I have a huge opportunity. I may have some issues with my neighbor. I'm not going to go into that, but those issues exist on a very superficial level, if I take to heart what I'm just learning here today. And they really do. We all have our quirks, and we all have our reasons and our triggers, but underneath it all, we're all Jews, we're all one soul for all of us. Av echad, look, one Father for all of us. Av echad lukolanu, and look with those kinds of eyes on the people and the relationships in our home and out in the street. And that will be the beginning of bringing the awareness of it, each one of us in our own way. The more we do it, it multiplies, and the oneness becomes more apparent everywhere. So, questions?
Hi, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I wanted to thank you for making a bracha at my wedding.
Well, I want to thank you for asking me to make a bracha. It was a big honor. Thank you.
It was a big honor for me. When you said tefillah and the honor tafel in the shorash tafel,
yeah.
What do you think the connection is between tafel and tefillah? Like, not important.
Well, that's why it's called tefillah. Tefillah is, it brings you to, takes the world of separation, brings it, everything raises up into singularity. Like our prayers are going up to Hashem, right? And all of us, millions and millions of us, little broken pieces are coming together. Think about this. There's that in any time zone, there are times when all the Jewish men, at least, are told to come together, even though we're spatially different, in different cities, different places, different time zones, but there's a coming together just physically. 10 people, that kind of thing, 10 broken, think of 10 men, and maybe it's as 10 broken pieces, all coming together. So davening is the mitzvah of davening. And the way to bring the Shekhinah is, it says that the Shekhinah only dwells in the, not only, but the Shekhinah dwells the Beit Asora, in the house of 10. So it brings parts together. Now it brings individual parts together also. It's meant, tefillah is avodah shebalev. It's supposed to take what we know and be an opportunity for us to not only bring it to our heart, but express it in a heartful way. So it also that takes the break between the head and the heart and puts that together. At least a couple of ways. I'm sure there are more.
So that, in other words, you're saying that we're tafel to the big picture, that each individual person, you're really talking about a minion of men when they're davening together.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not a man, so for me, that question was more like between me and God.
So take your separateness, what you have in your mind, right? Bring it into your heart, because that is davening, avodah shebalev. Take the disconnect between heart and brain and merge the two together so that the brain is influencing your heart and the heart is influencing your brain. This is the avodah shebalev, the work of the heart, to make that connection.
It's also our avodah from below to above, higher, opposed to learning Torah, which is from above to below.
Yeah, that's a general statement that davening, but mitzvahs also are avodah, below to above. But they're both Torah avodah gemilas chesodim. Torah, yes, is given from above to below, but it's our avodah to immerse ourselves in it, and through our avodah down below in Torah and avodah and davening and gemilas chesodim to create a rising force from below to above to bring down the feminine. So that's true of the whole deal. Torah avodah gemilas chesodim, but davening is particularly the place that's designed for bringing that to the fore, to make the connection.
and talking about tuffle, and we're talking about making the ruchnius, the ikar, that's davening.
Yeah, I was hoping someone would bring it up. Tuffle also is lashon secondary, right? But
That was my question. That was what I was asking. How is secondary connected to tefillah?
No, it's not. Isn't it spelled? Is it
has
spelled
to
the
be.
same? Is it spelled the same? I don't know. Is one with a pay and one with a tough? I think.
Maybe
we'll have to check
tough.
that out. I think so.
Oh, okay.
I think they just sound the same, but we'll have to verify that. I think that's correct, though. Yehudis.
Yeah. Obviously, this is not a chiddush at all, but when you were giving over the part about ve'ahavta l'recha kamoicha, it just redrove home the idea that it starts with kamocha, that you first or I don't know if you first, but there has to be the self-love as well, and that's included in this directive, that when you look at yourself, you have to look past your own quote unquote ugly, unsavory parts, and whether it's physical or midot, that there has to be the same mechanism at work.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Absolutely. Anybody else?
No, that's a real hand.
Okay.
The main thing, obviously, Lamed Bet is known mostly for the importance of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and I think that's what, when you're talking about this mitzvah, I mean, yes, it's bringing light into the darkness, but how would we do that? The most, the Rebbe is telling us here, by loving each other, and that the power of shalom is so overwhelming that if we could only get there, we could accomplish Mashiach. That's it. That's all. But and the absence of that, which unfortunately we see more commonly, brings the opposite. And that was the teaching from the Dor Haflaga, why they were all united. They were all united in doing something wrong, but Hashem could not destroy them as a result, so he had to disperse them so that they weren't united as united.
Right.
But that's v'ahavta is the one way we can feel connected. People that are very, very different from us. Doesn't matter.
That's right. It's the one way, and it's also a model for the entirety. That's why it says Wahil Azakin. Remember this, that it's called HaTorah Kulu, because that notion of looking past and through the separation and finding the state of unity is the whole purpose of the Torah. So it's an individual. Yeah, it's totally what you're saying, correct. That this is called the whole Torah, and one reason is because the fact that if we were all to do what you were saying, then the world would be in harmony and everyone would be living together. But in addition, because it's a model for the entire purpose of the Torah in general. Yeah, that's why it's called a Torah Kula. Zehu kol ha-Torah Kula. This is the entire Torah, and the rest is explanation. And this is the thing I underline. Ki yesod shoresh kol ha-Torah. The foundation of the entire Torah is this: to get past the separation and lift everything up to the state of unity. So it's both a huge individual mitzvah and a huge prototypical. Prototypical? Is that the word? Prototypical mitzvah for the whole Torah. Okay. Anybody else before we go? Okay. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You.